When I was a very young kid, we lived in an upper-middle-class neighborhood with lots of space between each house. All the houses on our street were very nice, but there was one abnormally large house, closer to a mansion. It sat right across the street from us, and my bedroom window overlooked the windows of the mansion. Since our street had incredibly low traffic, our parents let us play soccer in the street. One sunny day, my two friends Brian and Zeke and I were playing soccer. It was usually just the three of us, so we had this kind of free-for-all version of soccer that we made up. Eventually, the ball was kicked onto the property of the mansion, so I ran over to retrieve it. As I picked up the ball, I looked at all the windows to see if the house owner was possibly witnessing me on his property. But at one of the top windows, there was a young boy who looked to be about our age. I hurried off the property and back to my friends. I asked them if they had ever seen the kid who lived in that mansion, but they hadn't. The second time I looked back at the window, the boy was no longer there. It wasn't until a while later, probably a month, that I was in my room playing Nintendo. For whatever reason, I got up to get something and looked out my window across to the mansion. And there, at the window, was that boy again. He was surely looking at me all the way from across the street. It kind of creeped me out, so I walked away from the window to ignore it. Why hadn't I ever seen that kid outside before? Come to think of it, why hadn't I ever really seen the owners of that house? I asked my parents about the boy across the street, and they said they were pretty sure there was no boy in that house. So, the next time Brian, Zeke, and I were playing in the street, thinking of potential fourth players to have a real game, I had an idea. I ran to the front door of that mansion and rang the bell. A 50-something-year-old woman answered. I asked if her son wanted to play soccer with us. She looked at me puzzled and said, "What son?" I replied, "The boy who was always at the upstairs window." I can't describe the look on her face, besides shock and fear. She asked me what the boy looked like, and after my best description, a tear rolled down her cheek. She put her hands over her mouth. She brought me upstairs to the room where I kept seeing the boy. It was a boy's bedroom. She showed me a picture of a kid and asked me if this was the boy I was seeing. And I said yes. She told me that was her 8-year-old son, Charlie, who died 10 years ago. That woman living there had been alone ever since she lost her son and husband. She believed what I said because neither I nor my parents would have ever had any way of knowing about her son. She didn't tell me or my parents what happened to her husband or son. As sad as this all was, it was still horrifying. There was one other time I saw the boy. I was in my room months later, and I looked out my window to the woman's mansion across the street. There he was again, at the upstairs window. I could tell he was looking at me. I shut my blind with force and tried to forget about it. It still sends shivers up my spine when I think back on it.